time and time again. And here are just a few reasons why. The first is that Bruce Springsteen, at bottom, ultimately, is a storyteller. Beyond his singing, his musicianship, his songwriting, what he does in his songwriting and just as a person is he tells stories. Now, you can look at the most recent Netflix film and CD release, that is Springsteen on Broadway, to see that firsthand, because that is a masterclass in storytelling, and specifically using music and just captivating monologue to tell amazing stories. So check that out on Netflix or on Spotify, Apple Music. You can find Springsteen on Broadway. It is amazing what he can do to captivate audiences with stories. Now, most people who are familiar with his music know that those stories tend to be blue-collar, working man type stories, and a lot of them are based on true events ripped from the headlines or based on his life or the lives of his family and friends. It's an environment, it's a world that he knows very well, and that comes through dynamically in the songs and in the stories that he tells. The second is that he is an artist. He is a true artist, and he is able to reinvent himself and his sound. He's done that over the past 50 years. He's not somebody that tries to just see which ways the cultural wind is blowing and just give people more of the same old stuff or what they want. He's going where his heart and his spirit is taking him as an artist, what inspires him. And a lot of times he's been able over the years to actually help shift where culture goes based on his own artistry. The other thing that makes him a true artist not only is that he's listening to a voice inside of himself, but he also is taking risks. The album of the week that we'll talk about is actually a great example of how over and over in his career, Springsteen has been able to not traditionally capitalize on his success, but to take risks and take left turns in his career as his artistic side leads him. Number 3 is that Bruce Springsteen is a showman. Now, anyone who has been to a live Springsteen show knows that he lays it all out there. He gives it all, and those shows tend to last at least 3 hours. Now, I've never been to one. I'd love to go someday, but people that I talk to that have been say always, no matter what it is, no matter what year, that it was the best show or one of the best shows they've ever seen. He and his E Street Band do an incredible job of just delivering a high quality performance that does last a long time but doesn't drag on. It's an experience that they're packaging the most and giving people the most value that they can without it ever feeling long. And I think that's one of his greatest legacy points as an artist. That's one of the first things people think of when they talk about Bruce Springsteen, is his live show and his showmanship. Number 4 is that he's a prolific songwriter. So not only is he a great songwriter, and the songs that he writes are great, they tell amazing stories, they come from an artistic, place in his heart, but he's also so prolific. He's been able to write 318 songs in the past 50 years. And he's had 19 studio albums as of an album that came out this year. That's pretty incredible. And if you think about it and you do the math, 318 songs in roughly 50 years comes to about 6 songs a year. Now, he's not writing 6 songs a year. He's writing, recording, producing, mixing, mastering, and perfecting 6 songs a year. Who knows how many songs he's actually written to get to those perfected 6 songs? And remember, that's every year for 50 years. Who else has that kind of consistency to be able to put out quality music over a lifetime? It's mind-blowing. A lot of those albums, I said he has 19, many of those albums are double albums, where there's like 20 songs on the album. And if you go and read some of the notes about them, sometimes Bruce Springsteen writes like upwards of 40 songs, and half of them get discarded or used in later albums. It's really amazing to read about when he's in an inspired time and he's writing for an album, just how many songs tend to come out. It's extremely impressive. As somebody that has dabbled in songwriting myself, I can't imagine writing 40 songs in the span of a year or two and then discarding half of them, not even putting them on the album. It's quite amazing what he's able to do. And the last reason I think Bruce Springsteen is great, and I don't have great language for this, but there is an ineffable quality to the music that I hear, at least from my experience, when I listen to Bruce Springsteen music. It's something I can't quite touch or put into words. But it's like if his music were a painting, I think, or albums, they would be ones that I wouldn't be able to look away from. They would just immediately catch my attention on the wall, and I would just stare at them captivated. Or if they were a film, they would be one of those films that, effortlessly convey an amazing message that just surrounds me in an amazing world, and then 2 hours fly by in what seems like 10 minutes. There's just something about the way his songs and albums sound that bring me back to a place that I've actually never been. It's like a nostalgia for a place or a time that I've never been. And I can feel the emotions of the story he's telling as much as I can hear them. And that, if that's not the highest vote of confidence for a songwriter, I don't know what is. And so you may not enjoy it. You might not be able to get past how rough his voice can sound at times, and that's okay. But for me, there's several layers deeper to what I'm hearing. It's also a testament to what happens when you take a true artist, a poet, one of the greatest wordsmiths of our time, up there, perhaps surpassed only by Bob Dylan, and you surround him with some of the greatest artists and musicians and creative people on the planet to produce these records. It's just amazing. So all of this brings me now to the record of the week, which has been here the whole time, Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska. And this is a challenging album, if I'm honest. It's very unlike a lot of his other ones. But I'm going to tell a quick story about it so that you can see why this album is so brilliant. You see, in 1980, Bruce Springsteen released what was his fifth album, and it was called The River. Now, this was one of his most popular breakout albums. It's highly regarded as, one of his greatest albums. It was a double album, actually, like I talked about. And then in 1984, 4 years later, he would release Born in the USA, which is probably his most famous, at least famous song. Most everybody knows Born in the USA. I mean, like, you think Bruce Springsteen, you think that song. So 2 albums that, arguably defined his career, at least in the 80s. And they were high produced, loud, bombastic albums that, he gave it all, the full band. They were just very polished releases. Well, smack in the middle, in 1982, he releases this bad boy. And as the story goes, this album is all mostly acoustic with harmonica and a few backing vocals. He recorded this album in his kitchen on a 4-track tape recorder. And the songs that you hear on this album were actually meant to be demos that he would give to the band so that they could learn the songs and then they could record a follow-up to The River. And here's why this is so cool. Again, at a time in his career, going to what would be his 6th album, at a time when he's on top of the musical charts, top of the world, the conventional wisdom would say, put out a Born in the USA type album, put out a follow-up to The River that sounds similar to it, something that's going to sell just as well. But after he recorded these songs in this way, and he gave them to the band, and the band was, rehearsing them, something inside just didn't feel right to him. The songs, they didn't have the same life, full band, as they did on those demos. And so he decided, out of nowhere, to just release the demo versions. And that's what we have in this album. That's what makes it rather challenging too. Not only is it a bit darker in subject matter, a bit depressing, but the production is not polished. It's raw, it's real, it's honest. It's recorded in a kitchen. It's echoey, and but it shows the strength of his songwriting. It is said that you can judge a song well if it captivates you, just one instrument and a vocalist. And this album is a testament to that. And my favorite song that Bruce Springsteen has written is right here, Atlantic City. And it, like the rest of this album, is challenging. It's dark, and but it's also revered, and it's rewarding. So I'll put a link to all the stuff I've talked about, including this, and if you want to buy it on vinyl, I recommend you do so, and I'll put a link to that as well. But this has been Why It's Great Live. I'm Dan Drake. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please, if you like our videos, head on over to our YouTube channel if you're not already watching this on YouTube, and subscribe, and like us on our Facebook page, and become a follower on Instagram. Those things are small, but they would help me out, hugely. I'd be so appreciative. You can also support us on Patreon if you believe in our mission to bring positivity to the internet. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.